Hello, all, and welcome. I am Dr. Justin Carter. I will be your comparative politics professor for the semester. We have a little mini mester coming up. I try to be thoughtful about the fact that it's a mini mester, so we do about 70 to 80% of the readings that we would in my normal class in these summer and mini mester classes, so I try to cut it down a little bit. um, So basically, what we're doing is skipping the entire beginning of the book, all about like what is politics, what is science, what is political science, blah blah blah. We all sort of should have a basic idea of what all that is by now. The structure of this class is like most of my upper level classes. We'll have four in-depth papers. They're going to run 1,500 words minimum. I'll need four citations, no matter how many times you cite the textbook or a reading from the course. They will only count for one, period. So the point is to get you guys sort of outside your shell and going and finding other legitimate sources. I popped a lot of sources online last night that I really respect, like the New York Times, the Wash Post, the LA Times, Le Monde, The Economist, especially, Der Spiegel from Berlin, let's see, The American Scholar, and especially Foreign Affairs Magazine, things like that. So try not to cite things from CNN or MSNBC. That's not what we're here for. Okay, let's go find real research with real, PhDs and things like that, and really try to dig into this class. So, what is this class? uh, from my perspective, unfortunately, Americans in general have a very American centric perspective, and they don't know a lot about the systems of government that exist around the world, including other forms of democracies, the spectrum of sort of full state versus failed state status, totalitarian and dictatorships versus democracies, and even some of what they call what would be a good word for this? Like Fareed Zakaria, who's a really brilliant sort of foreign affairs guy. He does do CNN stuff, but he does a lot of really high level writing. And he calls it sort of this slipping democracy or this false democracy, right? So think about a state like Russia or China where they actually have elections, but there's only really one guy to elect. So they try to put in the principles of democracy while keeping, or excuse me, a facade of democratic institutions while keeping the principles of dictatorship alive and well. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk a lot about different styles of democratic systems, right? Proportional representation systems, guarantees for women and minorities, guarantees on institutional boards and labor boards, and even corporate boards in most of Europe and the rest of the world for laborers and engineers, regular workers, and sort of what effects those have. We'll talk about the PR system. We'll talk about electoral magnitude, how many people are coming from each district and how that affects their politics. So we're going to talk a lot of different sorts of systems that exist around the world because the American presidential majoritarian system is pretty remarkably rare, right? Most countries do not have a president, and if they do, they tend to be in South America and they tend to be a little bit autocratic. And we have the US, and very, very few countries have a real president. Like Germany has one, but all he is a handshaker, right? He goes on like diplomatic missions. They don't actually have any power, right? The PM has the power, the prime minister. So we'll talk about these differentiations too. Let's see. What I'm going to do is just open up the opening chapter of the book, and we'll talk about sort of each chapter we're going to go through. This is a really cool book, and a lot of it is based on some new modern economic theory. So they're going to use a whole lot of game theory to try to play through games. So I would brush up on some very, very simple games like Prisoner's Dilemma. And so, yeah, the opening chapter is going to be we're going to talk about where does the state even come from, at least from the European perspective. And then we'll talk about the democracy versus dictatorship. We will talk about how economics can determine democracy and dictatorship and vice versa, right? This is a very controversial area of political economy. A lot of theorists disagree what comes first, wealth or democracy, right? And so we'll talk about some of those. Adam Jaworski is a really good example who writes about that sort of thing. We'll also talk about democratic transitions, like what does it take for a state to fail so miserably or for the people to become so frustrated that a state takes over and gives power to the people, right? We will also talk about different varieties of dictatorship because there are many, and a lot of people have misconceptions about every dictatorship on the planet looks the same, right? That's not true. We have military dictatorships, we have juntas, you have theocracies like in Iran or some sub Saharan African nations, which is rising even more and more. You have autarkies like North Korea, which is also sort of theocratical. We'll talk about that. You have pseudo democracies like Russia. You have really powerful economically and politically nations like China, right? And then you have all of these middling countries like Brazil, South Africa, Colombia, where we don't really know where to put them. Are they democracies? Are they dictatorships? Are they failing? Who knows? So we'll talk about all that stuff too. Of course, we will talk about parliamentary, presidential, blah, blah, blah. We will talk about a lot of different elections and electoral systems in chapter 13. So we've got a lot to go through in this course. This is one of my very favorite courses. This is what I studied in graduate school for my PhD, and I studied ethnicity and nationalism. So, anyway, this is the intro. Again, we'll have 4 papers, 1,500 words, 4 legitimate citations, and then we'll have a final project. As soon as I put the first 3 lectures up, I will put out assignment 1. And please keep up the assignments because this course moves fast. So keep up with the lectures, keep up with the assignments. I'm available pretty much like 16 hours a day. I wake up at 6 a.m. I go to bed at 10. Text me anytime you need anything. You have my phone number on the syllabus. I'm not going to put it on YouTube. And you have my personal and my work email. So please, please, please reach out anytime you need anything. All of the book is free. I always try to choose nothing but free complimentary textbooks. It's really hard to get away from in my intro courses, but anything above the intro level, everything is almost always free. So I really hope you enjoy the course. I have about 6 to 8 other classes online if any of you want to brush up on some of your either political philosophy, because we will be talking a lot about political philosophy in chapter 1 or chapter 4, I guess it is, um, and a whole bunch of other stuff on economics and that kind of stuff. So I hope you enjoy the course. I'm going to cut it here. I'll try to keep all of my lectures 15 to 20 minutes or less to kind of keep you involved. So thank you for being here, and let's have this be a great course. Have a great day.